Battle of the Barrier was fought every Friday to define a front line that may one day become a border. On one side were Israeli soldiers, using tear gas and jets of foul-smelling water. On the other, Palestinians, with slings and stones, gas masks, and, today, a limping mechanical digger. Ever since Israel began building its multi-million-dollar West Bank barrier in 2002, it has been highly controversial. Stretching more than 300 miles, it is only two-thirds built, but has already triggered battles in court and on the ground. Israel claims it is a security measure, which has largely succeeded in reducing suicide bomb attacks from the West Bank.
The main purpose of the security fence is to stop the free flow of terrorism from Palestinian cities to Israeli cities. Just a few years ago, we had horrible terror attacks, horrific terror attacks. Men, women, and children were killed as a result of them.
But Palestinians argue that the barrier is a lockdown intended to stop them ever having a viable state of their own. They protest that for much of its length it does not run around the West Bank but through it, cutting into Palestinian towns, valleys and hills. On the 7% of the barrier that is a wall, mostly through cities, they have turned its slabs into a canvas, proclaiming their message with concrete and spray cans. Nowhere has the Battle of the Barrier been more intense than in the small Palestinian village of Bilain, halfway between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. Bilain lost hundreds of acres of farmland to the newly built settlement Modin Elit in the 1990s, and later more land to the barrier, which juts even farther into the West Bank. Here the weekly fight was about moving one stretch of metal fence, but was also part of a wider Palestinian campaign to keep the barrier in the international spotlight.
It became to be a piece of metal that's not worth anything, it's not security, it's not nothing, and still the Israelis are ready to shoot and to kill someone just to show that they are the power, that they are the occupation.
Here at Bilain, the Israeli barrier was a fence complex the width of a highway. Electronic wire, razor wire, a patrol road along which Israeli security vehicles would move up and down. At this point, it cut into the West Bank, through Palestinian farmland, separating the Palestinian farmers from that land. The village of Bilain protested. It went to the Israeli courts, and it won. The court ordered the Israeli military to move the route of the fence farther from the village, and, in due course, it did.
You can see behind me, we started today. This will take 4 to 5 days. In between, we are also doing the last things in the new security wall.
Because of the reduced distance, it is now harder for his soldiers to catch anyone who crosses in time, the colonel said.
The main danger, that is the time, when someone crossing the security fence till he comes into the town.
When the fence came down, the villagers of Bilain celebrated.
We try to make a new planet today, and this week is especially we are very happy because they are going and we are going to destroy the wall.
It was a broad alliance. Villagers were joined by left-wing Israelis, foreign supporters and even an Arab member of the Knesset, Israel's parliament. Salam Fayyad, the Palestinian Prime Minister, joined the protesters in the town mosque.
And we see it as the beginning of the rolling back of this occupation regime at long last. It took about 4 years since actually the issuance of that High Court ruling. Nevertheless, it started to happen. It's a beginning. It definitely is not the end.
So a small section of fence moved and became a wall. But the settlement behind it, Modin Elit, is a vast block of 50 to 60,000 Israeli settlers, predominantly ultra-Orthodox Jews. The largest settlement in the West Bank, it gets bigger by the day and is unlikely ever to be evacuated, even if Palestinians achieve their goal of a state beyond the Green Line. That historic line is now all but invisible on the ground, but has enduring political and psychological significance for those who see it as the only basis for a long-term solution. Any such solution will become harder if the Green Line disappears beneath concrete and razor wire, say Palestinians and their supporters.
Part of Israel's strategy in building the wall is to unilaterally erase the Green Line and secure as much control over Palestinian land, ensuring that as many settlements and settlers are on the western side of the wall under Israeli control.
Israel's military continues to insist that both the old and new barrier routes were designed along security lines, not political ones. Was it relevant at all?
No,
Green Line?
no, it's not relevant. This is the Supreme Court decision, and this is not relevant to the Green Line. Okay, this is not my issue.
I understand, but what am I? Was it a factor in your consideration about where the old route went or the new route went, the Green Line at all?
It doesn't matter.
What does matter to the settlement's mayor is that many would-be residents have lost investments and future homes. When the barrier moved closer to the town, it cut the land available for new building, he says.
אם לולא תקבע הגדר היו יכולים להגיע ל-150, 150 וגם יותר. ואם לא היה גדר בכלל, היו יכולים להגיע ל-200,000.
Palestinians are buoyed by events at Belin, where the land protesters moved to the new wall and supporters tour the now dismantled fence.
We can now work in the land and we can get back to the farmer. You know, it's a victory and you take some of your land back.
So in this zero-sum game, one side gained a few hundred yards and the other side lost a few hundred yards. But the divide between the two sides remains, as stark as ever. This is Stephen Farrell for the New York Times in Belin, in the West Bank.